All right, let's talk. I want to talk about the war you never even saw.
Yeah, I've seen the memes. I've heard you all talking. Y2K was the biggest scam in history. Sound familiar? Come on, admit it. You've probably laughed at that one yourself. Well, I'm not laughing. Not one bit. Because you know what? I was there. Let me let you in on the first and, frankly, the last secret of my profession. When we do our jobs perfectly, nothing happens. Absolutely nothing. You think the lights just stayed on by magic? No, the lights stayed on because people like me didn't get a wink of sleep for pretty much the entire year of 1999.
Okay, so let's get into it. To really understand this war, you got to understand the weapon. And the weapon, it was a 2-digit time bomb that we built ourselves. You have to remember, back in the 70s, data storage, it wasn't just expensive, it was astronomical. A single megabyte cost as much as a nice suburban house. I'm not kidding, a house. So what do? You save space. Every single byte counts. So instead of writing 1974, you just write 74. Pretty clever, right? A brilliant bit of engineering. Except we all knew the clock was ticking. We knew that when the date rolled over from 99, the computer wasn't going to see 2000. Nope, it was going to see 1900. So who cares if the date's a little wrong? Huh? Well, your bank does when all its mortgage calculations turn to complete garbage. Your power company definitely does when its safety protocols fail and the entire grid goes dark. Look, this was never about your emails not working. This was about the fundamental, invisible systems that run our entire world. Put it this way, this was about the entire global economy trying to divide by zero. You know what that is? It's a complete and total system meltdown. So how did we stop it? We stopped it by going down into the trenches. The COBOL trenches. That's where the real fight was. By 98, we weren't building cool new apps or anything fun. No, we were doing remediation. That's the nice corporate word for it. What it really means is crawling through millions of lines of ancient, forgotten code, line by painful line. Man, I can still smell the ozone from the data center. We weren't just staring at screens, you know. We were looking at physical stacks of COBOL printouts 3 feet high. 3 feet of paper for one system. And there were thousands of these systems. And all over the world, you had teams just like mine, digging through millions, actually, scratch that, hundreds of millions of lines of this stuff. We're talking about code written by programmers who probably retired before I even learned how to type. You want to know what that cost? I'll tell you. It cost 80-hour weeks, it cost missed birthdays, missed holidays, and enough stale coffee to float a battleship. And not just for a month or two, for years. And the thing is, you couldn't push the deadline. This wasn't some deadline set by a project manager you could argue with. This was set by time itself. We had a saying back then, you can negotiate with a CEO, sure, but you absolutely cannot negotiate with a Gregorian calendar. And that brings us to the final moments. The whole world holding its breath, whether they even knew it or not. So, December 31st, 1999. While you were out popping champagne and singing, I was in a bunker. And no, I am not being metaphorical. We were in literal windowless command centers. We had satellite phones because we assumed the networks would fail. We had backup generators for when the grid inevitably went dark. We even had printed out hard copies of every single critical database schema because we couldn't even trust that our own screens would stay on. And then the final countdown. At 11:59 and 58 seconds, every single eye was glued to a blinking cursor on a green screen. At 59 seconds, my hands were shaking, but not from fear, from pure, unfiltered, bone-deep exhaustion. The clock hit midnight, and nothing. The system just hummed. The date rolled over, no red lights, no alarms, just the sound of our own breathing in a dead silent room. We didn't cheer, we didn't pop any corks, we just collapsed in our chairs. That was it. That was the engineer's silent victory. So, let's circle back to that original question, the one from that meme you probably shared. Was it all just a big hoax? Let me put it to you this way. If a firefighter puts out a blaze that just started in your kitchen, do you walk in later and say, "That fire was a hoax because my house didn't burn down"?
No, of course not. The house is still standing because they put out the damn fire. And that was our reward. We fixed the bug, we saved the banks, we kept the whole world online. And in return, we got to listen to people for 20 years tell us the problem never even existed. That's the deal, though. You do your job right, and nobody even knows you were there. So the next time you see that stupid meme, you can tell them this story. You tell them, never forget the COBOL Cowboys. And you can tell them, you're welcome.